going to talk about incels a little bit here. BrendioEEE is a pretty famous for incels. Pretty famous incel. He was on a Jubilee video or two, and it doesn't seem to have. Oh, okay, yeah. For those who don't know, incel is short for involuntary celibate. These are people who believe that their lack of a sexual relationship that they don't have to pay for is not due to their shitty personality or their lack of effort. It's because they are. It's because society has changed such that they can no longer find the the woman that they deserve. And it is very much an entitled, deserved idea. This idea that, very similar to what PragerU was just talking about, how men and women used to have an understanding that men would work and earn the money and keep the food coming in, and women would take care of the children and clean the house and cook the food and make sure that dinner was on the table and yada, yada, yada. Obviously, that's not how society works anymore, and that's not a good way for society to work. But still, this is how they think. And I thought this would be a good video to go over to talk about this, because this is a common thing among incels. They all want a submissive Asian waifu. It should be noted just how fucking racist this idea is. Yeah, I just woke up. Should have been more clear. My opposition to religion is purely institutional, not intellectual. I have no issue with two idiots telling each other stories in their bedroom. Yeah. Yeah, Magnum, I understand. Sometimes it can be hard to, especially in text, to make your point clear. But enough of that. BrendioEEE. Take it away.
This is yet another topic I've been wanting to address for a while. The topic of why incels seem to have an attraction to Asian women. As you'd expect, this is predominantly a thing among white incels, and we'll get into why in just a bit. Well, I somewhat addressed this in a previous video, but not in grand detail or in a major way. But some people seem to have noticed a trend that white men, not just incels, seem to be migrating towards Asian women. Overall, relationship-wise, they seem to be happier, and Asian women seem to...
What is this based off of? White men, white women, white men, white female couples serve as a base based on 2009 data. Okay, I'm going to find this source real quick. Online library .wiley.com/doi/10 .1111/3737.2008.0058.x/full. Let's see. Did I... Well, that sucks. I mean, it is a 12-year-old, 11-year-old study, so it's... Wonder if he linked it in the description. Probably not. Nope. Okay, then. It's always the math. Okay, so this is interracial divorce rates. So, black man, non-white man, white woman, 85% more likely to divorce. Non-white man, non-white woman, 69% more likely to divorce. Okay, so it is black. Okay. Hmm. I wonder if this actual article would go into the reasons behind this that he's not going to touch on, because I'm sure there are a number of reasons that could go into this.
To be much more receptive as well. What's the reason for this? Well, there's a multitude of factors.
Yeah, I agree. Divorce is much preferable to staying in a shitty relationship.
Let's start with the question, why are white men, incels or otherwise, choosing Asian women over their own women? Well, the answer is actually
Over their own women. It has to be said that there's a lot of white supremacy in incel spaces too, somewhat unsurprisingly.
pretty simple. Asian women are more accepting of traditional gender roles than Western women are. In a nutshell, they act more like females. They're more feminine. They're more girly. Especially ones who are native to their Asian country, such as Japan, Vietnam, Thailand, and such. This is very attractive to men. You see, when you have a woman who acts like a woman, is happy to be a woman, is accepting of you as a man, even
Do I really need to point out how toxic this is? Like, the fact that some Asian women, and this submissive Asian woman stereotype is incredibly harmful to Asian women, and also not true. There are plenty of assertive Asian women. And especially if it's kind of funny because this is definitely a product of patriarchy, a word that I'm sure Brendio would hate to hear, but also a product of the westernization of these nations. I mean, Chinese did practice foot binding, but they stopped that more or less on their own. And yeah, I agree, Magnum. I think divorce being bad is about as dumb as being gay equals bad, honestly. More religious garbage. Yeah. Leaving a bad relationship should not be against the rules.
though you're not a
And also, what defines being a woman changes for each society. So, just because you don't like the way some women aren't all submissive, passive people who want to serve you on hand and foot, doesn't mean they're less feminine.
10 out of 10 super chad, cooks for you every day, is nice to you every day, has sex with you every day, is a good mother. These things are just naturally attractive to men as a whole, aren't they? Especially men who want love and a stable relationship.
I mean, to some men, but again, this is another common issue with incels, is that they essentialize their own wants and desires to all of men and essentialize what they find attractive as what should be attractive for all women. So this is why you get things like them. If anyone has, if no one here has ever viewed an incel subreddit or board, they can be fucking insane. Unfortunately, most of them have been banned from Reddit for hate speech. But one of the most ridiculous things they obsess over is their canthal tilt. It's the angle of the outside corner of the eye in relation to the inside corner of the eye. This is. Let's see, does this. Okay. Oh. This is how they claim that it's over. If you have a bad canthal tilt, then you are doomed forever. If you have a good canthal tilt, then you will be beating women off with a stick. So here we go. Oh, this is a YouTube. Never mind. I just want the image. I don't want the fucking video. So a positive canthal tilt, like, think about how insane you have to be to obsess over how angled your eye is and deciding that that's how women decide whether they want to sleep with you. It has nothing to do with how you dress or how you take care of your body or your personality or attitude, and has everything to do with how angled your eyes are, how thin your wrists are. This is another thing they obsess over, is if you have thin wrists, then it's over. It's either beta bucks or the rope. Literally. Those are the two choices these incels think they have. Which is also kind of why they go after Asian women, but no, it's mostly the submissive Asian woman stereotype. And it's fucking disgusting. It would be a lot funnier if it weren't for the fact that many of the uh, mass shooters we've had to deal with in recent years were incels. In fact, oh god, who's the big one? Elliot Rodger? Yeah, this dude, he is a saint among incels. So Elliot Rodger, who I notice a distinct lack of pictures of him. That's funny. So Elliot Rodger, this dude, he was an incel. And he killed people because he couldn't get laid. And on incel boards, he is referred to as Saint Elliot because he's killed so many Stacys. Or whatever. Yeah, there we go. Here, I'll pull the picture back up. This is the picture that's most often used of him because it bathes him in this glow. I mean, he looks good to me. Like, obviously, I'm a heterosexual dude, but yeah. This is from just a week ago. A February homicide in Canada is now being treated as a terrorist act after Canadian authorities announced the teenager who they say committed the crime was inspired by the online incel movement. Yep. This is what is awful. They're killing, and they are killing themselves for what is ironically. So, this is something that a lot of people don't realize. Incel was originally coined by a woman. So the first online community to use the term incel was started in 1993 when a Canadian university student known only by her first name, Alana, created a website in order to discuss her sexual inactivity with others. She didn't. It was basically a support group. Basically, people could get together and talk to each other about their issues, in a healthy way. This was early online. This was in the early days of online when you had to really work to get on the internet. So it was used by people of all genders to share their thoughts and experiences. In '97, she started a mailing list on the topic that used the abbreviation INVCEL, later shortened to Incel, for anybody of any gender who was lonely, had never had sex, or who hadn't had a relationship in a long time. And maybe because of that, maybe due to other factors, she became more comfortable and stopped participating in the project around 2000. Years later, she would learn that it was co-opted by a bunch of lonely dudes blaming women for their problems. This is the important thing. It was started originally as a way, hey, these are issues I'm having. Does anybody know how maybe I can work on this? and it instead became a very toxic place for men to get together and talk about they're how women are the reason why they can't get laid. Again, another reason why they're interested in the submissive woman stereotype, because then they can get laid whenever they want, not whenever she wants. Yeah. Is this the Jubilee? What is this?
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in.
I think this is the one that has the very incel whose video we're watching here. No? Yeah. Derek, BrendioEEE. We might watch this afterwards, but let's listen to him explain why he wants Asian women. Yeah, sorry, don't drink and drive, bro. If you don't look like Tom Cruise or Brad Pitt, then it's over.
And part of the reason for this is the fact Asian women are much more likely to be traditional and virgins. And as we've covered in multiple different videos in the past, a woman being a virgin is basically the biggest determining factor of a happy, stable marriage. But things like holding onto your virginity often
That's not true at all, but okay.
come from a traditionalist conservative culture, such as Buddhism, Shinto, or various other Eastern religions, spiritualities, or philosophies, and the cultures they've created with said values, whether they're still religious or not. So basically, in a nutshell, white incels and white men in general see these Asian women who are receptive to them and want to act like a woman and treat their man as a man, because he is a man, and this results in a happy relationship. But this isn't the only factor. There's also the factor of why do Asian women seem to be more receptive of white men than white women in certain areas? Well, this is for a multitude of reasons. For example, where I live in LA, it's a very, very leftist and progressive area. It's not traditional at all. It's the most promiscuous city in the US, and as a result, the most hypergamous, resulting in the most shallow women in all of.
I forgot to talk about hypergamy, yes. This is the idea among incels that under previous structures of society, let me just pull up paint real quick to illustrate this. So under previous structures, when men decided the relationships, you'd have, 10 men, 9 men, 8 men. And let's see. And under previous structures, no, I just want brush. Just give me a line. Thank you. So tens would go to tens, 9 would go to nines, and down and down and down. Now, the 10 men can get with tens, but also with nines and eights and sevens. So the lesser men have less options. And this is the other really big stupid thing about incels. They'll complain all they want about wanting a hot, big titty goth GF or whatever, or an Asian girlfriend or whatever, or just anyone to touch them or take or take an interest in them. They'll also be very look shamey about what they refer to as land whales or women they don't find attractive. Yeah, don't drink and drive, bro. I'm kind of in the same boat. I don't consider myself an incel because I haven't tried for a relationship in a while. But also, I understand that that's the reason why I haven't had a relationship. So, if you've tried and got struck out, then, don't necessarily think that it's about you. It could have been about them. Maybe they weren't interested in a relationship. It could be a lot of things. So don't worry too much if you're not in a relationship. Focus on yourself. And I know it's kind of cliched to say, but be happy with yourself and you'll find happiness in others. So, but hypergamy is this idea that since women are now the gatekeepers of sex, they get to choose who they go with. So they only go with the top 20% of men. And anyone who's not in that top 20%, that, 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10 chads, are completely out of luck, and they're just going to have to settle for being beta bugs. Which is basically an incel who marries someone because he has money, but she's sleeping with Chad or Tyrone on the side.
Of the country, as well as a constant amount of anti-white propaganda, and anyone who's studied a tiny bit of female psychology knows women tend to follow societal trends, and if society and culture is telling white women white men are bad, they're going to hold white men to a much lower degree than before, unless of course they're a 6'4" Giga Chad who is just so magnificent and beautiful and masculine. It doesn't matter how much anti-white propaganda and anti-white brainwashing they've gone through, they simply won't be able.
Look, I know people who would probably, on this objective incel scale, be a 4 or 5 or 6, because the Chad scale that they use is purely physical. It doesn't look at their attitude or personality at all. It's just, here's a picture of them. What rating would you give them? I know people, actually, Dodge, I love you, buddy. You are not physically good looking. But Dodge has one of the kindest, funniest personalities of any man I've ever met. And he found a really good wife. And he is very happy and successful in his life. Yes, he did just say Giga Chad. Like, a good personality, a good attitude, can make up for a lot of physical deficiencies. Not all of them. If you smell, if your clothes are stained and greasy, then, you're going to have issues. If you're fat and don't dress well to kind of make up for it, that's... that's how... That's what you got to do. It's not just the looks you were blessed with by genes and how you were raised. It's also your personality and your attitude. And that is what is so wrong with these incels, that so many of them are so toxically misogynist and painfully awful people. And they blame their lack of success in the dating world on being on women being too picky, being hypergamous.
Able to deny a man of that caliber, even if they're not of said caliber themselves. So when you have white women who would rather be with a shorter, fatter, poor black guy than a white guy of equal chaste and caliber because of her own internalized hatred of her own race, where does this lead?
Or maybe because she likes short, fat black dudes. Like, this is again that essentializing I was talking about. They will essentialize attraction to what they think it should be and try to come up with other reasons to explain it, like internalized white guilt or whatever.
Leave the majority of average and below average white guys who are either incel or can't get with a stable white woman. Well, this leaves them with Asian women. Now, don't get me wrong. In my experience, westernized Asian women who are in multicultural and multi-ethnic neighborhoods, in my experience, tend to be more shallow than even white women. But Asian women who come from homogeneous communities, traditional neighborhoods, or best of all, are natives to their country of origin, these women tend to be much more receptive to white men. Sometimes even more so than their own men. Well, why is this? Well, again, this varies from country to country and race to race.
Mostly, I'm guessing it's because when you come from a conservative enclave in a liberal society, you want to rebel against that conservative enclave. So if you're being pushed to find a good, Korean or Vietnamese boy to settle down with, you're going to find the worst person to bring home, which in many of those enclaves, given how racist they can be, is a white dude. Like, I'm not trying to let Asian women who do this off the hook either. It can be kind of a shitty thing to do. But, like, this is why I think everyone should be free to choose who they want to spend their life with, or just the night with, whatever.
But typically,
This guy's whole premise is that women don't want to sleep with him because they want to sleep with other races. Doesn't sound racist at all. Nope, not a bit, Dodge. You're right.
among many Asian cultures and societies, white men are viewed as higher status, higher value, higher worth, exotic, new. The more rural and poor the country, the more this effect has a hold. Also, women naturally are attracted to more masculine features, and sadly, as I have mentioned in the past, Asian men tend to have more neonatal features, which makes them look more young and boyish than white men. And when white men tend to have more defined and masculine facial features, this can cause a bit of a discrepancy in the sexual market. Even in
Again, this is ignoring the fact that white features have been the hallmark of beauty because of white supremacy for the last several hundred years in history. The reason why the white facial structure, the lantern jaw, those kind of things are considered the height of masculine beauty is because white people have been in charge for the last several hundred years. It's not because women actually find them more attractive, it's because they've been told they should find them more attractive.
average white guy will look more masculine than an average Asian guy in many Asian countries. So this does give off a sense of masculinity and exoticism to many women in these areas. Even ugly white guys do much better in areas like this. This is again because of the exotic factor. I'll try to explain what the exotic factor is as well. When you are not accustomed to a certain race or intelligent species, you are much more likely to be accepting of the ugly members of said race and species because you have less of a concept of what ugly is in relation to said race and species. You may be wondering why I'm bringing species into this. Well, for example, let's say a new intelligent life form comes to Earth to create a colony on Earth. They bring some of their...
I was afraid for a second he was going to go into another... This is probably more recent than this video, because this video came out 2018. Have you heard about the dog pill? The dog pill is an unironic belief among incels that white women would rather sleep with dogs than incels, and that many women are already sleeping with dogs because they're just so desperate for dick. This is an actual belief that many incels carry. And it just shows how sick they are that they unironically believe that women would rather sleep with dogs than them. They think they are less attractive than dogs. And I mean, dogs are super cute, but if you really think that women would rather sleep with a dog than you, that says more about your beliefs about women than it does about you or the dog.
men and women, and facially speaking, there are some minute differences. But to us, they all look relatively similar. But to them, they can easily tell each other apart, and they can easily tell who is the ugly ones in their species and who are the good-looking ones. A man might be much more receptive of an ugly woman of their species because he has no idea what ugly is. To him, it's just exotic. This happens a lot across racial lines as well. It's why ugly white men seem to do much better with Asian women. And you even see some cases where a vastly uglier white man gets with a much more beautiful Asian woman. Anyways, this seems to cover it all in pretty decent detail. Now, I'm not supporting this kind of behavior or encouraging doing this, but this is absolutely why it is happening. Personally, I think it is despicable that white women and Asian women have been brainwashed in many cases to hate their own men. And it's morally reprehensible. Although you have to consider,
They aren't brainwashed to hate their own men. You're just, again, essentializing certain behaviors you've seen. That's not brainwashing. That's you applying your thought processes to people who aren't you.
often not the fault of the women, it's the fault of outside societal influences who have caused and allowed and encouraged women to think this way. White men shouldn't feel like their own women are inferior or don't want them. No race should. Asian men, white men, black men, Indian men, it's a disgusting feeling and truly outrageous and truly shows the absolute state of our society. Well, I'd be happy to cover this topic again if anyone has any questions or comments. But for
Yeah. So, this is him stating his opinions to the camera. Let's see how he did in a Jubilee section on toxic masculinity. This should be good.
In for middle ground, which is all about disagreeing and having a dialogue.
That's right. Make sure you stick around to the end because we want to discuss more about the ethos of middle ground. But for now, we hope you enjoy.
You said that women are misguided. We are not misguided. We do not need.
This is Derek, BrendioEEE. He looks all right. I mean, he could probably do maybe with a trim and to brush his hair more. Maybe lose some weight, but I'm no one to talk there. But, you know, he looks all right.
Need you to shepherd us.
How's it going? Hello?
Hello.
Would you call yourself a feminist?
I would.
Yes, an intersectional feminist.
When you hear the word feminism, what comes to mind?
Marxism?
To me, feminism is fairness.
Just to be clear, Marxism has nothing to do with feminism. Not even modern intersectional feminism, except where it talks about the intersection of gender issues and class issues. But that's... yeah.
I think that it's unfortunately misguided.
Feminism is a flawed movement.
When you hear the phrase men's rights, what comes to mind?
Aggression.
Advocating for the human rights of man as a class.
I start laughing.
What do you hope to get from the conversation today?
I would hope to get some insight and probably, if anything, agree on a lot more than disagreeing.
I actually hope to get a little bit more understanding of why some men think this way.
Do you think there's a middle ground between men's rights activists and feminism?
We'll see.
Hi, my name is Zach.
Let's just real quick, let's see what who these people are. So they've only got 4 people down here. BrendioEEE, we already saw, he's a 2,500 subscriber YouTuber. Cursat, account suspended. Okay then. Fatboy Mimi and Zach. Let's see. So 1,500 followers. So, and a 60,000 YouTube subscriber MRA. So yeah. And we don't have any information about the other 2, so... No, I do not have an OnlyFans. I got laid last night. Although, congratulations.
Zach, and I am 24 years old.
This is Chris. I'm a PhD student at the University of Southern California, and I'm also a Title IX specialist who challenges discrimination against men on college campuses. And I'm 30 years old.
Hi, I'm Derek. I also go by Brendio. I'm a YouTuber, and I'm also known as an Incel, which is an involuntarily celibate.
Hi, my name is Alicia. I am a writer, poet, and teaching artist.
Hi, I currently work in the pet health industry, and I'm 30.
So we've got an unknown, a YouTuber who got suspended. Or no, is this the... Oh no, Zach, that is the 60,000 subscriber, and the 2,500 subscriber YouTuber, and then this guy who knows what he does, versus someone with 1,500 followers on Instagram, a writer, and someone in the pet health industry.
I'm 24. I'm a graduate student with a degree in health sciences, and I'm excited to be here today.
This is what we mean when we talk about Jubilee stacking the deck.
Should I get my men's rights activists in the left and my feminists on the right? if this statement is true for you. I believe men and women are different but equal.
This really depends on what you mean by equal. If you mean they're equal, like, biologically, or that they have equal capabilities, I would tend to agree, although there are some things which men tend to be better at than women, and some things women tend to be better at than men. If we're talking about under the law, then, again, it's kind of shades of gray. But I think it's telling that 2 of the feminists walked forward and none of the MRAs did.
I know as a woman that I don't have the same physical strengths. Men and women are built differently. I think whenever things are built differently, it's for a reason, right? But at the same time, the amount of limits that have been put on women historically, like the fact that not too long ago we were just allowed to start voting. Even today, like the wage gap, just all types of stuff. Like women just don't have a lot of rights that are just, it should have nothing to do with what gender we are to be able to be paid equally or just be treated with respect. So, yeah.
I do believe that, of course, there are biological differences between men and women. And of course, there should also be legal equality. Of course, I disagree with the idea that women face systemic discrimination. You just mentioned the wage gap, which has been debunked so many times.
So, just real quick, talk about the gender pay gap. The issue with the gender pay gap is that in some industries, women are paid less than men. But it's also the reason why the gap is as large as is often cited, with 77 cents for every dollar a man makes or what have you. The reason why that comes out is because women are socialized to go into different fields than men do and thus make less money in those fields. They're socialized to go into fields that make less money than women do. Like, women are socialized to be elementary school and middle and high school teachers. Men are socialized to be college professors, and college professors tend to make more money than high school teachers. Men are socialized to be doctors and lawyers. Women are socialized to be nurses and secretaries. Obviously, they make less money as nurses or secretaries than doctors and lawyers do. This is something that we are trying to change, but we're trying to override decades of social inertia. So it's slow, but it is slowly changing.
I've studied evolutionary biology quite a bit. And men and women are very different from not just a physical, the bone structure, the neurological department as well as the chemical balances. And also, I don't believe that men and women are equal under the law either, or they should be rather. Children are not equal under the law. And it's not because we hate children, it's because we love them and we want to protect them.
So if you believe we're not equal, then that you're inferring that one would be greater than the other.
Well, so let me
So that's
chime
what
in
I'm
with
trying
my
to-
perspective.
yeah.
As far as not being equal, I don't think that necessarily means inferior or superior. When it comes to certain things like roles like childbearing, a woman is going to be far more productive and a lot more nurturing than, say, a man. And when it comes to doing a lot more of the heavy lifting and the work, a man is probably going to be more suited for that role. And I don't think that makes them any better or worse. We are just built, created, and born different.
I would also like to elaborate. I am not saying that they are worse overall or better overall.
They complement
like
each other.
Said, they do.
They complement each other beautifully.
They work very well together.
We
when
need
they
each other
are working in that
for
proper-
offspring. I mean, that's part of the beauty of it. And I think
Is fuckbag muscle boy trying to sound like he's not as deranged as the crackhead in the yellow is straight fire? Yeah.
trying to equalize them and make them the same, and
It's so funny how with 20 seconds of dialogue you can tell how awkward and misogynistic Derek Brendio is. And the muscle-bound fuck is also pretty fucking deranged. He's just better at hiding it.
transition and all that, I don't believe is going to be the most conducive when it comes to raising children, but also just for overall well-being.
I want to note that you brought up
All three of these women are just completely done with these arguments. And I don't blame them. They probably see a lot of this shit on social media and whatnot. The MRAs are fucking cancer online.
children being unequal to adults. I just hope you weren't comparing women to children.
I mean, it was technically a comparison of women
Okay,
and children.
I don't need you to
suppose.
protect me. I just need you not to harm me. I can protect myself. I'm very capable of doing what I need to do. Okay?
Okay, sure.
100%.
I am an incel or an incel advocate, I suppose. I don't hate women at all. I think we're different, and they have aspects that are superior to men as well. It's just very contextual on the.
So, Muscle Guy is more likely to grab a woman and rape her. This guy is more likely to go on a shooting rampage. So, it depends on what kind of danger you're talking about. But, yeah, in general, I'd probably agree, Magmill.
On the subject.
Toxic masculinity is real.
I think that toxic masculinity is definitely a real thing. It's kind of just the idea of what masculinity should be, but it goes wrong a lot of the times.
Oh, yeah, because he's better at articulating his points in ways that normies can understand and agree with. Yeah, I would agree there, Magmo.
Saying that violence, sex, power, being a controlling person makes you a man.
I see it in very unfortunate places, like when the young men or boys in my family, even from like toddler age, are told, you shouldn't be crying, boys don't cry. And what that turns into, I see it when I'm in a bookstore and a guy who tries to get my number says, why y'all always gotta act like that? And he sincerely had this like cracking voice, like he was hurt, but it was an entitlement. And that's toxic masculinity. It's saying like, you don't realize how your behavior is harmful.
What does toxic masculinity mean? Is it character traits? Is it upbringing?
The suppression of feeling for a lot of men, because throughout childhood, they're told man up. So because of that, there's a lot of repression. Repression then is usually channeled into anger for some people because they not always know how to express because they're told not to express.
So upbringing and
That's part of
environment.
it,
Okay.
yes.
But not something that's inherently part of men. Okay.
No.
I think that, when you're showing your emotions, especially to random people, random women in some cases, they will view you as weak. I was raised by a single mother. I love her. She's my mom. I love her. But I could have used being told to act like a man. I think back, there were some cases where I was too emotional, and that negatively affected how I, what happened to me. And,
May I ask a question?
Sure.
What is your definition of weak as a man?
Not being as forward as you could be, not being as honest, or trying to be not as emotional as you don't need to be. You don't have to cry over a cut. I know sometimes cuts hurt a lot, but sometimes it's necessary to be strong for the benefit of not just yourself, but for the people around you. It's fine to act emotional in certain cases, but I don't think it's fine to act that way with a woman. Maybe you have a really good friend and he sees you cry, he's your best friend, and you're crying about something really personal. I think that's fine.
I feel like you're conflating two different situations because you started off with saying a random person or even women. So it feels like, okay, this is a woman that you don't have a bond with or any type of relationship with. And then you mentioned, or in front of your best friend. That's okay to cry. Well, that woman could be your best friend. That, so.
Women being my best friend. Yeah.
And again,
the woman, so.
Because you don't see us as equal, as you said before.
I don't think showing emotions is a sign of weakness. I actually think it's a sign of strength. Men do live shorter lives, and that's because of a repression of emotions, and that's due to many things that patriarchy has instilled.
Repression of emotions.
It has been shown that a person's well-being, their lifespan is shortened when they are not able to express their emotions. In addition, when they don't have physical touch or when they don't have a partner to keep them company. We are human beings here. We need to talk to each other. And if you think that our health isn't affected when you're not able to express that you are sad or upset, you're wrong. I think that.
Yeah, this is a major issue men have in our society, with the inability to express themselves in healthy or therapeutic ways. This basically there's two emotions men are allowed to show, and that's anger and lustful, and that is not a healthy way of dealing with anything. So it causes a lot of issues. This is, I don't think I should have to say it, but I'm definitely going to be on the feminist side of this argument. Would anyone care to guess what percentage of incels are just deeply repressed homosexuals? I'm guessing it's not low. You're probably right there, Dodge. Probably right.
That men's rights activists are only men's rights activists as a response to women expressing that they want more equality. I don't think they focus on actual men's rights issues, and rather it's just an attack on women and feminism.
Today, women have more advantages than men.
I can speak from a hiring standpoint when it comes to things like affirmative action, and there are certain roles that traditionally men and women have been able to serve in, and now women can basically do all of those things, right? Because we've had such a strong advocacy for equal representation in the workplace. Whereas, for example, you'll never find a man.
So I don't think there's any job that a man can do that a woman couldn't do just as well. And yes, I'm including manual labor, construction, what have you. Women can be just as strong as men. So this idea that there were jobs that men could do, that's all jobs.
Man as a midwife nurse, and I don't think it's appropriate. That's why there are those differences.
Women.
Why? Why don't you think it's appropriate for a man to be a midwife? Unless you think that a man can't see a pussy without getting aroused and wanting to rape her, which says more about you than about men.
In like the most important parts of society have an advantage. There's a lot of positions that men simply aren't getting hired at anymore because of the fact that they're a man. And it's not just in the workforce, it's also, I would say, it's a lot easier for a woman to find a relationship, even if she, says it's finding the right guy is so hard. It really isn't. But sometimes for a lot of guys, finding a girl at all is hard.
If I have to consider what I wear before stepping out the house, because I don't want to draw some type of attention, I don't know how many other men have to consider, is this outfit going to be deemed safe for me? Any situations I have experienced where I physically felt endangered simply because I don't want to give my number out. It's part of that entitlement for men. You're not entitled a conversation with me. You're not entitled to my number.
That aside, it's like, are you going to make one example of the entitlement of men when it comes to asking for your number be the all-encompassing thing that all men have a problem when it comes to approaching women?
Well, firstly, it's not just an example. It's not necessarily all men. I don't dislike men. I love sports, I play video games. I have bros, I hang out with dudes. We just want men to realize that if you have friends that are having locker room talk, as a man, as an ally, please say something to your friends.
Do you think repressing that is really the solution here, though? If it's in a healthy male space.
I don't think that's healthy. I think it's
No,
toxic in itself.
I mean, if you're making jokes and you're doing all of that.
Jokes that are harmful jokes are not healthy because they just lead to people normalizing things. People always say, oh, it's just a joke. But when someone else hears it, they don't realize how that resonates. And
Yeah, this is where you got to be real careful about your jokes you make. Wow, that I like men, I do sport. Nacho's comment was cringe as fuck. So when you're with a group of friends, I have friends I have known for years, and I'm pretty confident I have sussed out their opinions and beliefs on women. So if I make, and they know my opinions and belief on women or races or what have you. So if I make a joke that sounds racist or sexist or what have you, then I know that I am not contributing to their beliefs in those systems. And they know that I am not actually trying to perpetuate those systems. It's just, edgy humor. But if you're in public or with people you don't know and you make a racist joke or comment, even if you legitimately, honestly, unironically believe that it is just a joke and you are not trying to reinforce those beliefs, then you can reinforce those beliefs in other people. This is why it can be very unwise to make those kind of jokes and comments outside of a group of people who you know very well. And even then, if your friend is harboring racist tendencies, but they're very good at hiding it, and they've just gotten better at hiding it because they know you wouldn't agree with it, then they would probably just think, oh, maybe he believes what I believe. Yeah, one of the big issues, again, we've got a 60K YouTuber here and a 2,500K YouTuber, which is virtually nothing, unfortunately. But it's clear that Muscle Dude has had some media training, but I don't think any of these, or at least the media training of a semi-successful YouTube channel. And these rests have not.
Again, how that turns into violence. Like, this is not an isolated situation. I'm only thinking of 3 off the top of my head, because if I think of too many, I'm gonna spiral
So
right now.
what's the alternative? Men shouldn't talk about these things.
No, I think men
one's
can
ever
have a
said
healthy
that.
dialogue. I don't think men have to be toxic in order to have a conversation. I know plenty of men that are able to have conversations about healthy, productive things, just like women are.
Well, it's not obviously something that I have personal experience with, but only 1% of all people on the death row are women in this country. So when women and men commit identical crimes, women are much more likely to, for example, escape the death penalty.
Except that men and women don't commit identical crimes. Again, not all rapists are men. Not all men are rapists. Most rapists are men. Not all men are murderers. Most murderers are men. Like, that's an incorrect conflation. I'm a man who didn't know whether the Packers were a football team or a baseball team, Lamau. Hey, that means you're smarter than the rest of us. Don't drink and drive, bro.
And that's just plain sex-based discrimination.
That I agree on.
That's true. Look, I'm thinking about basic needs, like around the globe, the women who don't even have like proper like sanitary like products.
I mean, I have to agree. Just small things like a tax on a box of tampons. Do you think I choose to do this monthly? No, trust me. So why should I have to pay taxes when this is a medical necessity?
We're just like dismissed. A lot of our symptoms, a lot of the things we report, especially women of color, but women across the board, are just treated a lot less equally.
I'd say that I'm an advocate for what I believe the role that men play in society. I believe that their views should be expressed openly, that they should be given a platform to do so, and I believed in men unapologetically and unashamedly being men as we were created.
I think in my heart that there are things that men are entitled to. I am all about human rights, and I do consider the rights of every human, but every time I hear of a men's rights activist, I hear anger and I hear very illogical reasoning, and it just boils my blood because it's a setback for all of us.
What's really aggravating about men's rights activism is not that it exists, because I do think there are things that should and could be advocated for that could qualify as men's rights advocacy. Unfortunately, I have never met an MRA who's willing to actually advocate for those things, because all they want to do is reinforce the patriarchy. They want to reinforce toxic masculinity. They want to undo the advances of feminism. They want to make it so that men are returned to the dominant gender and women are returned to the kitchen and the bedroom. And that's not healthy. Like, I think if you want to be a good, healthy, non-toxic men's right advocate, you would be a feminist, or a leftist at least. And you would advocate for things like greater workers' rights and to destigmatize the showing of emotion. Like, this is something that a lot of these men's rights activists ignore, is how the idea of men being emotional and crying was the norm until a couple hundred years ago. And even a couple hundred years ago, it was perfectly acceptable for two men who were just friends to walk down the road holding hands. Now, they probably wouldn't get, like, attacked or whatever in public, but they would get the side eye, and depending on who sees them, they may well get harassed. And I think if you want to try to bring that back, then good for you, advocate for that. But I also think advocating for one gender over all others is also pretty fucking cringe. I grew out of watching most sports, but I'm still a baseball dude. Mostly I just don't have the time anymore, but I can watch a baseball game while I work. Well, yeah, that's because baseball is equally boring whether you're listening to it or watching it. Appreciate it, Dodge. It's probably because I enjoyed when I wrestled. I have a passing interest in MMA. I watched the last one out of one eye while doing other work. I cry all the time. Cat video, cry. Sad song, cry. Think too long about the overwhelming cruelty of the world and the inevitable oncoming oblivion of death, cry. True, Magmill, true.
I feel that the other side does not understand my values.
I think a lot of times when a movement is created, the other side thinks that they're being attacked or think that it's some like attempt at erasure. That's not what feminism is about at all. What do you need a whole men's rights activism movement for? I'm sincerely confused.
Well, I mean, like, I will advocate for positive masculinity and what men should represent and healthy outlets for men. Like, I still think the Boy Scouts should be exclusively the Boy Scouts, for example, one of those things. Where I would like to think that we could get some common ground is when it comes to the clear biases that are in the court system, especially in the marriage and family court system, right? And right there is what I would advocate for when it comes to men's rights.
The things that stand valid, like that I'm hearing from y'all that are like valid to me, come from a place of like, I'm treated like unfairly by the system versus a lot of the things women are saying. It's also America and the system as well, but a lot of it is like harm from men.
How and where?
How and where what?
Where's this harm from men coming from?
Okay, it started when I was young. I'm not gonna talk too long. I was 16, got a bottle thrown at me because I told a boy no. It started when I was in a club, a boy touched me, I said no, he kept touching me, it got to the point he got violent. It gets to the point that the only reason why a man decided to stop touching me in the bookstore I talked about earlier is because he realized my husband was not too far away. And he said, sorry, bro, never said sorry to me. That's why, and that's off the top.
Yeah, if you think that a woman rejected you and you need to apologize to her husband or boyfriend or whatever, not to her, you got a problem.
Top of my head. This is why I get upset, because I'm like, I'm here to talk about like how you feel, but when you just dismiss the fact that women actually have experiences, that's when it seems like it's about more than your rights. It seems like it's about your ego. And that's where I get pissed off, because how dare you tell another human being that their experiences, what they're telling you right in front of your face, is not valid.
I didn't say they were invalid. I said how and why. I'm trying to understand.
How and why? Because it happened. It happened many times. It happened yesterday. It happened the day before.
Okay, I think some of the things that
Yeah, this is where we get into that someone who has experience with arguing and debating and someone who doesn't, because although she is this woman right here is absolutely right and is feeling some real feelings, this dude being all calm and logical about it is going to come off a lot better to an audience than her impassioned arguments. So while he's being a dick to people who aren't informed on the subject, she looks much worse. So this is again a situation where they fucking stacked the deck.
that you guys are touching on, such as the court system and gender roles, are a subject of patriarchy, and that's part of what women are trying to dismantle, is those traditional gender roles.
Are there any feminist organizations that have done anything, for example, to challenge bias against men and fathers in the family court system?
Absolutely.
Can you please give me a list of feminist advocacy organizations that have engaged in any meaningful advocacy to address those issues? Because there are actually none.
Okay. I know that you came with your little research or whatever. I didn't come with a list of feminist organizations, but I know actively that there are women's organizations that are trying to dismantle those inequalities.
Just one name, just one
Again,
organization.
I didn't come with a list, my dude.
There are no such organizations.
Every single feminist organization is trying, at least intersectional feminist organization, is trying to create greater equality between the genders, between the sexes. That includes advocating for greater men's rights, greater equality of rights. Because, frankly, there's no need for feminist organizations to advocate for women's rights when it comes to child custody, because the courts already favor women over men. So any feminist organization getting involved in that, let's just do a quick Google search to disprove this European jackass. Let's see, women's rights or fighting for child custody. I don't know. Let's see. Nonprofit arm of the National Organization for Women carries out a variety of public education litigation projects, including among those perhaps the best known is our Love Your Body campaign. Okay. Which is a resource page for women involved in divorce and child custody. Okay. So, let's see. Let's look at the Very Well family. This looks like general health. Yeah. So, American Coalition for Fathers and Children. Again, it's not really a central part of feminist organization or fight because, again, we don't really need more. In that particular instance, where it comes to child custody, we don't need to fight for greater rights for women. Feminists are fighting for greater rights for men. But there are other more important areas to focus on. But there are still people fighting for that. To be absolutely fair, she should have been able to name a single organization. Wasn't a strong moment for her. I agree. Yeah.
In what ways are men's rights at risk?
I think there has been significant progress over the last decade or so.
Dude, can you be any more fucking Eurotrash? Seriously.
Especially in the legal field, but I think there are still significant disparities that need to be addressed, such as poor health conditions, bias against men in the criminal justice system, bias against men in family courts, and bias against men in the educational system, especially in colleges.
Men and women should be allies.
Men, unfortunately, many of them don't want to even have this open dialogue that we're sharing right now. We need men to help be allies, to help speak to other men.
It strikes me the way you phrase this, you almost want men to say certain things that you want them to say, as opposed to maybe actually listening to what they're saying.
What certain things would I want to hear?
Just kind of men being allies, men talking to other men, etc. I'm completely okay with that, but I'm not going to repeat feminist talking points to other men.
We all believe different things. We may be under the label of men's rights activists, but for example, I'm probably the most traditionalist person here. I think we should be allies, but maybe us being allies in a patriarchy wouldn't be so bad. Us going back to the past wouldn't be so bad. It
wouldn't be so bad for you to be, systemically oppressed, and the only way for you to get ahead is to get a good husband and marry well. Would that really be so bad? Jesus, fuck, dude. And yeah, there's no bias against men in college. Are you fucking kidding me? Even in the wokest English departments I've studied in, it's way more than 50% male professors. Yeah, like I said earlier, women are encouraged and socialized to become like elementary and high school teachers, and men are socialized to become college professors. So yeah, this idea that there's a bias against men in higher education, it's fucking idiot.
We'd be a lot happier if we were, getting married and staying married and having kids and, going to church and all that, la-di-da-di-da.
While speaking to the three of you, I feel like you're each coming from different perspectives. So it's hard to, again, just like our perspectives, it's hard to generalize. So to me, I feel like there are certain things that, even though we're...
Yeah, show me a female department chair and I'll eat my fucking hat. Yeah, exactly. Unless it's like a women's studies department chair, in which case, yeah, of course. But
we're not fully agreeing on it, things may get lost in translation, our verbiage may not be 100% correct, that we could at least agree on.
Can I ask one question? What would you envision would be the ideal man with the end goal of feminism?
I kind of assumed that as I said that, but I guess I had too much faith in higher education.
As far as educating men or working to dismantle whatever patriarchy is, like what does that man look like?
It starts with childhood. We have to teach children as well as girls, because we're also taught, because of toxic masculinity, what a man should be as well.
I think that we just need to hold men accountable. In order to kind of make progress, we need help from people that will listen, because let's be real, when we express our concerns, a lot of men refuse to listen, but they would be more likely to listen to another man.
Do you also feel like you have an ethical obligation to challenge other women or other feminists when, for example, they deny that men face discrimination?
When it comes to things like, oh, men can't be abused, I've had this conversation with another woman, and it's the idea that just because a man may be physically stronger than us, does that mean they cannot be abused? And because of that, again, fairness, women need to be held accountable as well. I want to understand their viewpoint. As a woman,
So Dodge, I work in healthcare, so most of my leaders are women. It's honestly pretty great. Our whole company constantly talks about the importance of work-life balance, company culture, etc. That's cool. It's good.
and a woman of color, I know how it feels to be disenfranchised. So I want to understand why they feel the need to have a men's rights movement.
I feel empathy for the other side.
I don't think there's ever a time.
Let's be real here. At least two of the guys over there were like, actually probably all three of the guys over there were like, we're going to hear no end of it if we don't go over there and claim to feel empathy for them, so we'll pretend. Because I do not believe that any of those three guys actually feel any empathy whatsoever for feminists. Definitely not Derek, and yeah, none of them.
In my life where a person says they're hurting and I don't at least try to listen or understand. My only thing is that I want the same in return. So when I'm genuinely saying I'm hurting or I've been through something, and it's not just a personal experience, because I actively do this work and surround myself with women saying I've been hurt by a man before. I get that you have stories, but I mean, that's actually my question. I haven't heard y'all stories. Like, I've sat up here and said I have 3 on the top of my head. I have about 30 plus probably. And I haven't heard y'all say, this is what happened to me.
I don't think that I'll ever invalidate a woman's feelings when she says, hey, I've been abused or whatnot. I don't think any of us here are rightfully saying that. But I think what's dangerous is when emotional testimony that may not always be what it is gets, creates bias, right?
Okay, I feel empathy for women being lost, being misguided. Look, I don't know. You can go.
Do you have any bit of empathy for anything we said up here?
Yes.
No, not a single drop. Not a bit. Women feeling lost. What the fuck, dude?
I really do feel empathy for
Why
women.
was that so hard to say? Like for the
Honestly, this kind of makes me wonder if they put him in there to balance out the other two, because he's just so inept at. He's just so mask off that you can't have a real conversation with him.
stuff that we said, do you have any bit of empathy for the stories I said?
Let me step in dad style with that slow gravitas delivery because I'm the only adult. Attitude makes me want to. Thank you, TOS.
Here?
Yeah,
I just want to know.
I do.
Like,
yes.
I'm not even trying to be hostile. I just genuinely want to know.
Yeah, I just think that like a lot of the problems that have happened in your life are because society is not patriarchal. It's not traditional. It's we're gone. We're lost. We're in a fallen state, right?
There is a change of
Beta.
guard, not necessarily a change of guard, but things are evolving, things are changing. And I feel like a lot of men speak from a viewpoint almost of fear. A lot of men are having a hard time grasping that and feeling comfortable with it.
I do feel empathy for your personal experience, but I cannot sympathize with your ideological position because that ideological position is built on a fallacy. And that fallacy is actually costing that's causing very real consequences for men as a class in this country. So I understand that you are here with us as kind of the
What advocacy do feminists do that causes real harm to men? Please explain.
good feminist, so to speak, that you feel empathy for men, and I believe you, but I do not believe your movement, and I do not believe your ideology.
All right, we'll leave it at that. That's a wrap, guys.
I'm sweaty.
It's no wonder that Eurotrash guy got his fucking Twitter account suspended. God. I think I've actually seen this before, and I forgot how just completely mask off Derek was here. And how patriarchal this douchebag was. But yeah, incels are fucking cringe, bro. And if you can't mask it that well, then maybe don't go on a 5 million sub channel to talk about your issues with feminists. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the show. Remember to like, share, and leave a comment because it helps me. Subscribe and ring that bell to help you. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.